Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to approve the minutes for April 10th. Any corrections?
Motion by Tom to approve the minutes from April 10th. Second by Jennifer. Any other corrections? All in favor? 5-4, and I abstain, and Bing abstains. We do have an agenda for today. Any additions to the agenda? We'll walk in. Sure. Motion by Carol to approve the agenda with additions. Second by Tom. All in favor? We're unanimous. Jennifer, go ahead. Or not, we can go into executive. We'll go out of regular into executive. Go ahead, Daniel.
I got skipped there in that executive conversation. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say our application process, I would assume we have some sort of waiver of liability and some sort of warranty. I can't see any of our departments moving forward without that. That would take the liability off the tribe and warrant the work that we've paid for to be completed. So I think we need to refer back to the department and see what our disclaimers are in our paperwork so we can decide how to move forward. Right now, I don't think we've got the right baseline to make a decision on whether to go pay for this or not without all of the basic information in front of us first.
Thank you, Danielle. We're looking for Shane this morning already?
Yeah, Melissa's in, she's part of the discussion.
Okay.
I'm letting her back in the meeting.
Melissa, did this need to be executive?
Yes, it does need to be an executive.
Bring her back into executive, back in.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, rest of the council. This morning I'm here to hopefully get a resolution passed to purchase the Freeborn parcel. That is the parcel on Highway 35 on the south end. Up near Flathead Lake, not on Flathead Lake. Just so the council knows, I have not been able to complete the asbestos survey on that parcel, but our offer incorporated the theoretical instance that we might have to abate asbestos when we remove the home. So I think we're fine there. I'm not too worried. But anyway, so I'm here today to get that resolution passed so that we can close on this parcel April 28th. So Mr. Chair, I will be hitting you up for a time frame for closing at that time.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your due diligence working on this tonight. I would make a motion to pass the resolution.
motion by Colin to pass the resolution in the Freeborn purchase. Get a second. Second from Lynn. All in favor? You're unanimous.
And the next issue I have is several months ago, I brought a trust parcel along near Mud Creek to you guys with a trust landowner that would potentially like to donate the remainder of her parcel. Years ago, we purchased the southern portion of her parcel. She would like to donate to the tribes the remaining 25 acres of her parcel. And Lance informed me that I needed to get formal action to accept that donation, which I didn't do last time because I did it in executive to keep her identity unknown. So today I would like to get formal action for the council to accept this donation of 25 acres-ish from, a trust landowner near Mud Creek.
Oh, motion by Tom, accept the donation. Second by Jennifer. All in favor? Unanimous.
Okay, and just to remind council, this landowner would like the remaining 25 acres to be managed for fish and wildlife, like the portion we already purchased years ago. So I brought that up last time. We just wanted to remind you folks.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have today, and I'll be in touch for the 28th. Thank you.
Come on up, Michelle. Right, morning.
Morning.
Before Miranda talks to you about the change of duty, I wanted to remind you about tribal consultation tomorrow at Quatucknuck. I don't have any of you registered for it, and it would be really great to have tribal council presence there. Thank you.
Right, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I gotta be in the Zoom all day tomorrow.
Okay.
But, both Mike and I received a phone call from the first lady of the state. This is CSKT.
Okay.
And she is a big proponent and collaborates with Dollywood or Dolly's book club thing.
Okay.
So she was looking for a connection to our tribes and trying to get more participants on the reservation. I think that's what the message is, this message. But that's the message, and so the first lady would like a call back from someone, and I figured, well, tribal ed's the call back.
Okay.
But at least in my opinion.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I would love to go, but I can't. I've signed up to go to, I'm going to the Bernie Sanders rally in Missoula tomorrow.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would go.
I'll come see you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Good morning, council. So we are coming in today to request a change of duty for any tribal employees to attend the tribal consultation at the Quatucknuck tomorrow from 9 to 3. And currently we have 10 tribal employees. I don't know if that's not me. 10 tribal employees signed up. We're closing it later today, so we'll have some more names hopefully on there by the end of the day. And I know this is with supervisor approval also.
A request or change of duty for the traffic consultation tomorrow at Quatucknuck. For any employees with supervisor approval. Motion by Tom, second by Jimmy. All in favor? We're good, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Katie available?
Yeah, she's right. This way you can use them to show your pages.
Okay. I'll let you talk if you'd like. Good morning. So we are trying to purchase a new, I'm not sure if my voice is too loud.
You guys might not need.
Okay. All right, yep, so we're just trying to purchase another piece of equipment down the check station to replace our conic shed that we have down there with like a better mobile building for the inspectors, so they have more break room access, because right now they can't really have much hangout time inside when it's hot out with the AC when it gets hot, because they only have that little tiny window to look at the traffic and everything. So we're just trying to purchase this. We got this grant a couple of years ago and just for site improvements down at the station, and we're trying to get the well running as well, so just wondering if we can have the approval to purchase the new building.
Questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Does it have a bathroom in it?
No, there's no there's no septic down there. That's why we just have our portable bathroom right now.
Motion by Tom for the capital purchase of a building for, yeah. Second by Ben.
Just a quick question, the location of the facility down there in Ravalli, is that sitting on MDOT property or is that on
So, yeah,
county property?
this is a building that's right on the edge of that property.
Okay, so we just need probably a quarter acre there, if anything, for our operations there, right?
For all of it,
Yes,
I would take all the available space that's there. Because what happens is you can stack up vehicles, you don't get them off highway, so you want more space for people who are waiting for inspection. Because where the inspectors are on the state.
The reason why I asked, and I want you to continue discussion with MDOT about the
Well, I almost got the county afraid to let's use that church building school. That's what we really want.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, no, I forgot what I was going to say. We don't want NDT to then all of a sudden expand that fence and start to stack vehicles or whatever in the parking lot. That is a bummer. I was hopeful after the director was here last week that maybe they'll look into it better. Thank you, Tom, for really getting after them for, their really societal obligation to assist with the whole process, and that our concern is not their ease of access for their machines, because they're trying to close the station, the Ronan station, which is by Connie's Countryside Cafe. They want to close that one down and move everything down. So hopefully we can keep pushing, and this is our Band-Aid in the meantime. Additionally, the bathroom will be remodeled into IT in this new building like it is in the Connex.
Other questions? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
We didn't vote, did we? All in favor? Unanimous.
box.
Can we go to the end of the executive?
A regular into executive.
Legal project related for. They're on their way.
You actually bent over backwards. There's a list on the back of the book that shows all the different programs that you might be interested in, like benefits or cemetery or different things like that. And when you bend it over and you look at the white on the back of the book, those white hash marks, actually, when you looked at back, you just reach over and you reach to that black hash mark that's on the back of it. Maybe Amy can take one of the books and show you. That black hash mark will go right to that particular subject. So that's what's neat about it. So if Amy can show you how to bend the book over, and it'll get right to the particular subject. So we order them every year for the veterans to be able to get the training and have that. It's a very comprehensive resource for veterans to go through the tribal veterans representative training. So I figured we'd bring those over and give them to each one of you that you have right there at your desk to be able to look at if you have veterans or family members that come, that covers, family members benefits also. So, it's a good book to have as a resource. So that's why we want to, make sure you had those. So does anybody have any questions or anything about the books?
Look forward to looking through to see all the reference.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff in it, there's stuff that a lot of people, I know the VA employees that even use that book, there's stuff that they, when they start going through the book, they don't even know about that. They realize, oh, I'm missing out on this, and there's a lot of stuff in there. But the other thing that Lawrence and I have been talking about and trying to work on is with Bill Rogers just passing away. He's the Lawrence is still the tribal veterans representative, but Bill is the last trained tribal veterans representative for Flathead Nation, with the exception of Lawrence. So Bill's been the last one working in the Vets Resource Center down the hall down here. So we need to see, you know, what you want us to do as far as trying to get somebody to work in that office down there and all those records that are down there, because all the records that are in the file cabinets down there belong to Flathead Nation. Even though the VA records, that copy belongs to Flathead Nation. And it belongs to the veterans that came in and worked with Lloyd, Mary Jean Rogers, and Bill Rogers. And they did all the paperwork on there. So they're all locked in the files down there. But the Flathead Nation, and I don't want to sound like I'm being bossy, but and that's one reason I brought those books, is really needs to look at who do you want to be able to come behind Lloyd, Bill, and Mary Jean to assist Lawrence with that program. Because if you look at some of the reports that Lloyd did, the program was bringing in over $1 million a month to the Flathead Nation between Veterans Benefit Administration claims, Veterans Healthcare, and then you look at the end with National Cemetery Administration with the benefits, the burial benefits, and then survivors benefits. I'm working on survivors benefits right now for dependents that are enrolled members of the Flathead Nation. I'm working on those survivors benefits right now for those survivors. So it's once the veteran passes away, the benefits don't stop. The survivors still have benefits. So it really needs to see who you want to appoint to get trained to go into that office and continue that program. We've got 2 trainings coming up, one the 9th through the 13th of June, one the 18th through the 22nd of August. June is going to be at Fort Harrison, Montana. August is going to be Saginaw Chippewa in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. So we can send the council the announcements and the registration forms that can be sent back in once you decide who you want to attend that training. We put our cards in those books so that you've got our emails, you've got our cell phones and our desk phones on those business cards. And all you gotta do is, I know I tell Amy to shut her phones off at the end of the day. Mine are never shut off, and she gets after me, you know, why are yours on? Mine are, she's got kids, I'm just working. So you can reach out to me anytime you want to. And we're here to help you try to figure out what we need to do with this program over here. So that's the biggest thing we want to do, ask for time today to figure out what do we need to do to help get this program on track and keep it on track, especially in the memory of all the TBRs that got this program to where it's at right now.
I definitely appreciate that. We need to identify somebody. Know exactly the process we'll use, so find out who's available, who might be prospective for the position. $1 million a month, that's quite a resource.
It is a lot of money because if you don't have somebody that's actually working with the veterans and able to get the veterans in, do the paperwork and get the paperwork, over there and get it turned in, it's just like, and I hope Mary didn't mind me bringing this up, but I've been working with Mary quite a bit since Bill passed away, is I get it in there, bam, we can have it scanned in one day, get it worked in one day. If you don't have somebody over here working with the veterans and the family members, there's a lot of benefits that are lost. And the veterans, I'm a Marine veteran myself. Amy is the spouse of, or a previous spouse of a Army veteran. All the veterans raise their right hand, and they earn the benefits. All of us have a different type of benefit, maybe depending on when we served, and how much time we had to give, and what benefits we actually earned, and whether or not we are service connected veterans, non-service connected veterans, whatever the case may be. But it's just like here. I know there's a lot of benefits that aren't being used just with the Navy Direct Home Loan Program. We've worked on that and it just, for some reason, cannot get traction with that program. There's a lot of benefits being lost with that program that veterans aren't using, and it's just the Navy Direct Home Loan Program. It's a lot more beneficial to veterans. The one thing that a lot of people don't realize that program is if an enrolled tribal member, a female, marries a veteran that's not a tribal member, they can still use that program. And it costs less money per month. The costs are lower and the payments can come directly out of the service connected pay. They don't even make the payment every month. It's automatically taken out of the service connected pay. The other thing is a lot of stuff that's being missed. It's very, very underutilized is the copay exemption. We hand that form out everywhere we go. Veterans that enroll for the copay exemption, they're backdated to January of 2023. Any primary care appointments they had or prescriptions that they paid for, they're reimbursed for those appointments. All they have to turn in is the 10-334 and their enrollment card. And they're put in there and it's marked in their primary care folder. Lloyd, it took me forever to get Lloyd to do his paperwork. He did thousands of veterans. Lloyd finally did his, and then he was marked in his folder that he was a enrolled tribal member. So it 2 pieces of paper and they're automatically enrolled in the VA on the veterans healthcare side, and then also you get marked on the veterans benefits side as being an enrolled tribal member. 2 pieces of paper is all it takes, and it's a lot of money for the veteran. And it also helps on the tribal side because once it's in there, if the veteran goes to tribal health and they're seen at tribal health, the VA automatically pays for those appointments. There's a lot of stuff that Amy and I are, even though we're work out of Denver, we're the Montana point of contacts for that tribe, tribal healthcare. And then we do all the sites in Montana for VA Montana. So there's a lot of money that's just being left on the table, which really should not be being left on the table.
Any questions, people? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the book and Sweetgrass, and thank you for everything you do. I know we're missing out on lots of things because my brother's a Vietnam vet and I started dwelling into it and trying to get it covered. And really try to come to the full breadth of what's out there. We are definitely underutilizing resources that are available. The question is I know right down the road here, we've developed a homeless shelter. So is there any assistance to fund that homeless shelter? If veterans participated, it would certainly be able. I just was wondering about that.
I'm not sure if there's funds to fund the homeless shelter, but there's funds that help the homeless program and they can individually help the veterans. And there's different ways to, get more assistance for the homeless veterans. So there's a bigger package for veterans. The other thing with him being Vietnam, there's a lot more stuff open right now for Vietnam veterans. So is he enrolled for healthcare right now?
Yeah, I was just, that was two separate questions. But
Right.
Yeah, he's actually in a rest home right now. He's covered by Medicaid.
Okay,
That's what's covered.
so
He's
one
not
thing,
receiving any benefits at all.
see, the biggest thing with him, what I would do with him is say, let's get him enrolled for healthcare and see what we can get for him. Because, I go way back to, an individual who lived over by Plains, and they wanted just his medal that said he was a survivor of the Town Death March. We went in and did his stuff. He ended up getting 18 medals, and we had it over here at Charcusta. Excuse me, we're talking about. And he had all kinds of stuff come to him. He had no idea he had coming. So I always say, let's get that first piece of paper and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I know, Buck, I got him through that. Got him through the medical stuff and actually had him, available to move into the vet in Lincoln Falls. He had 8 in assistance payments before I got him on Medicaid. But once I knew that he needed full coverage, as assistance to live, that he wanted to be local and didn't want to live in Columbia Falls. And so the best thing I could do was get him on Medicaid and get him in a local rest.
Well, if you want to look at the BBA side and veterans benefits side, I'll be glad to help you and see what we can do, see what he's got, and I can get with you later.
Yeah.
And we'll go in the computer and look at it and see what he has.
The problem, more consideration would be that drop-in vet that might be homeless and want to participate in our homeless shelter.
Right.
I'm just looking for any funding to help fund that.
So the homeless program is through VHA, so I can get with you and we can figure out who we can get to try to help and see what's available and how that can be helped.
Any other questions for, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Betty Clemens and Betty. Hi, my name is Betty Fine and I was active to VA representative and I was trained by him at Mount Michigan, I'm sorry. What was it, Pleasant? Yeah, I can never remember, there's so many mountains, but anyway. And I would like to, again, be active. I haven't been able, the communication dropped and so I wasn't able to participate as much as I like, but I did do a few things with VA information, but I'd like to be active again.
Any other questions? I should appreciate the gifts and the book is gonna be meant to be able to see what resources are there. And we'll definitely look at identifying somebody to get after helping our vets.
Okay, thank you for the time, and like I said, you call me anytime, and then we'll see where we need to go and get started on this then.
So much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, take care.
Mary.
Mike, can we go into executive?
We will go out of regular into executive. Brian.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Vice Chair, Council. As you all might recall, I'm on the board for Wild Montana now. And as a number of you might also recall, I first got introduced to that organization when they were assisting the tribes with your bison range restoration activities. At that time, their deputy, well, Montana Wilderness Association, as they were known then, kind of stood out because they had a very deep bench of active support for the tribes on the bison range issue, as well as other things. So a lot of the work I did with them also involved John Todd, who was their deputy director at the time, and he is now the executive director of Wild Montana. We've been talking about getting him over here to have a face-to-face meeting with you, so you all could. I know he's met some of you already, Mr. Vice Chair. I think he's talked to you a number of times. And just so the council knows, John's been over here a number of times. He came back, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago when I was working in the bison range, just to sit down with your natural resources department staff and just hear what kind of issues are on their radar and what's important for them. And it's kind of in that vein that he wanted to touch base with you today. So I just wanted to give that kind of background. He wants to talk to you about a proposal. So as I said, he's been wanting to come here and have just kind of a face-to-face. And so we're going to make that happen as soon as we can. But something has come up in that they have a meeting coming up with Congressman Zinke, I believe, towards the end of the month, and I'll let John address that. And they want to talk about some conservation initiatives, and I think John is interested in just getting a sense of where CSKT may be with some of these issues. So I can turn it over to him and just I'll be here on standby if I can be of assistance in any way. But please take it away, John.
Thanks, Brian. Can everybody hear me okay?
There's full disclosure, there was a former board member of the Montana Wilderness Association back in the day, so, yeah, no John, so, yeah. So, glad you're doing that.
Well, I think you were on mute when you were trying to say something.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
No.
I'm not on mute.
Each time we talk, we can't hear them.
We're working on it, John.
Okay.
He's not on mute, he's talking into the, but we can't hear him.
Any better now?
Can you speak?
Sing us a song, John, and then we'll.
I know better than I'm nervous enough already. I'm definitely not going to sing. Still nothing.
We're still working on it.
Okay.
It just recently did an update to our computer system. This is what we get.
My fault. So try it again.
How about now? How about now? Still nothing?
One more time.
How about now?
That works.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you missed the whole song. I did a whole song. I don't know, but clearly I was on mute. So maybe we'll save that for later. I wasn't nervous until I saw the screen switch to me being in sort of presenter mode, but now I'm quite nervous. But I am really grateful for you, Mr. Chairman, and council members for including me in your agenda today. It really is an honor. I do wish I could be there in person. And I know you have a full agenda, so I'm just going to jump right into it. If you're not familiar with Wild Montana, and I know some of you are, this organization was founded in 1958. We pride ourselves in being the oldest and largest conservation organization in the state, if not the region. And as Brian mentioned, we've also had a really long and productive relationship with the council, from supporting the bison range restoration to finding more appropriate place names for geographic features in Montana, to working together on place-based legislation that achieves mutual goals for both, our members and our organization, as well as for the council. And that's what I wanted to speak to you about today, again, as Brian said. But if I were to sum up the work of Montana in something akin to one sentence, it would be something like, we work to protect places on public lands just the way they are today, so that the species that use them, the stories that they tell, and the benefits that all people receive from them persist for generations to come. And as Brian mentioned, I'm the executive director. I've worked at Wild Montana, formerly Montana Wilderness Association, Mr. Vice Chairman, now Wild Montana for 13 years. And I've been in this role as executive director now for the last 2 of those 13 years. My goal today is pretty simple. I want to make a reasonably good impression with you all, so that I'm hopefully invited back at some point in person. But also, as Brian said, I want to get a sense of the council on a variation of legislative concepts that you all have provided some feedback on over the years. And we don't want to proceed without having a conversation with you again, as Brian mentioned before, a meeting with Congressman Zinke. So some of you may recall or know that Wild Montana and a lot of our partners have worked for decades to protect public land in the Blackfoot and Clearwater valleys for the last 20 to 30 years. We've done that through a variety of ways, through agency planning processes, whether that's resource management plans with the Bureau of Land Management, or forest plan revisions through the Forest Service, but also of a little bit higher profile legislative proposals that have ultimately not been successful in Congress. And there's a pair of those that have received varying degrees of success, I would say.
Executive adult.
Hello, thank you.
Afternoon, Dad.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon, John.
Good afternoon. Are you gonna mouse me? Good afternoon. We're here today for 3 mods to task orders 117, 118, and 119, and approval for task orders 204, 206, and 207. So we'll start with task order 117. And this is just to extend the period of performance to October 31st of 25, and it's a HVAC. Finish up some ARPA HVAC.
Question? That's in a motion to approve modification to task order 117, motion by Tom. Second by Jennifer. All in favor? Unanimous.
Now, excuse me, task order 118, we are asking to extend the period of performance again on roofing to October 31st of 2025, and also deobligate 101,954 from this task order to task order 206, we'll bring that up later, but actually, we're just asking to de-obligate the money now and extend the period of performance for the roofing.
You have the second page for that? Yeah, this is just the cover page.
Any questions? What changed?
It was clerical errors, and it was. So it was obligated under the ARPA funds. When the clerical errors were discovered, we did get hold of Greg and we were gonna obligate it back, but instead of going through that process, we were just moving it over to another task order, which would still be under ARPA eligible.
Motion by Colin to approve the modification to task order.
It was missed on the second page.
Second by Jennifer. All in favor? Question, Carol?
Is it clear how you're transferring those monies and putting it in a different area? Is it all documented, so there's no question?
Yes, under the contract line item number through SKM, it's all clear.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
And now, task order 119, we are asking to extend the period of performance again to October 31st of 2025, and it's for windows and doors. And this one is also to de-obligate 25,982 from task order 119, also to the court expansion. Same thing, clerical error.
Questions? Motion by Mark to modify task order 119. Second by Colin. Favor? Unanimous.
Now, task order 204, we are looking for approval. This is a paving task order in the amount of $596,605. And we have 12 areas. Some are getting paved and repaved. And some are getting chip sealed and just resealed also. And everything from I'll go through a quick list of the ones we're doing. The retreat, commodities, Bison Range Turtle Pond, Bison Range staff parking, Bison Range road to the maintenance shops, Kicking Horse Fitness and Roads, Kicking Horse entrance, DHRD parking lot, the Complex Boulevard out here, lower parking lot of Kootenai Hall, Early Community Center, and the Post Office. That is task order 204 in the amount of $596,605.
We're still Caliburn at the Bison Range or the job corps entrance.
Yes.
Is that coming out?
No, Caliber stand is just on this side.
What's the purpose of the Caliburn? Apparently, you're keeping them off that whole road, you know, in the highway.
In the highway. I don't know. They do run cattle up and down that road once in a while because they lease the land on the north side.
Yeah, that's their problem. Usually you station someone at any road like that, keep the cows.
And then also, another thing with that, they have the drainage, of course, everything's on a hill, so the drainage runs around by the kitchen. Down the road and under the cattle guard, down south, and then daylights out down by the canal. So there is a drainage under
I think they have another tool for that, it's called culvert.
culvert.
I mean, again, it's technology, there's advancements and stuff.
Sure,
I just wonder what that category was still there for. I've wondered that for decades. As I hit it a couple times with a hole in it or something,
That's fixed also.
oh, well, someone got a torch out there and a piece of steel.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, make the motion.
Motion by Tom to approve task order 204 paving 12 areas. Second by Mayne, all in favor? Unanimous.
Now, task order 206, we have a corrected one. And this is in the sum of 153,576. It's for the Ravelli AIS site and also the Bison Range kiosk for the entrance for power, internet.
Can I add one thing? We were looking at the kiosk for the Bison Range because it's come to our attention through multiple ways and because of some of the work we were doing last year on the road, that there are people bypassing and not paying for the Bison Range. When they come in, they're pulling into the parking lot and sharing permits with other people. So they get their little hangar, but they don't come in and pay. People are just giving them to them in the parking lot. People are coming into the day use area and walking their dogs and using the restrooms and doing all those things. So we're putting up a little really cool looking kiosk at the front so that we can try to capture as much revenue as possible. Knowing, because somebody told us in Yelp that people are bypassing us and than what we saw last year. So we really think that this might help us capture a little more revenue. We're not even sure what we're losing at this point. And then the contract was modified as well because we did the capital equipment request this morning for AIS.
Yeah, so the kiosk will be like self-reporting, like they can pay at the kiosk. Cause I used to run at the Bison Range years ago. And a friend and I used to go there and like, I don't know, do our running route there. And we got stopped at the gate one time. Actually, I think maybe more than once. But people thought we were the workers, we were Indians and they wanted to pay us to get in. And so I always thought, that would be nice to have like a live person down there to just right at the gate.
It will be a manned station, so we're putting some HVAC in there, we're insulating it, it'll have power and internet run to it so we can run credit cards. Our intention is to have very quick contact with the public at that point and direct them to the visitor center for more in-depth information. We're also thinking with Highway 93, Post Creek Bridge, detours, there's going to be a lot more traffic on that road. So we don't want to be backing traffic up onto the highway. We're being mindful of that. Quick pay, go through, enjoy the property, stay as long as you like. So there will be people there. I guess right now people are going to the house, the old Buffalo Cafe and the little gift shop trying to pay. Again, they're just not even coming on property. They're approaching the people in those buildings. So I know that the folks at that Buffalo Cafe gas station store are interested in having the tribes buy that property, but I don't have money to buy property, but if anybody ever hears about that, that'd be really great.
Any questions? Entertain a motion. My column, approve task order 206 for the AIS Bison Range. Second, Daniel. All in favor? Unanimous.
Last but not least is task order 207, and this is for the court expansion in amount of $978,000, of which $127,936 is the reobligated portion from task orders 118 and 119. And the grant of $779,080.
First about the port expansion. Motion by Carol, approve the task order 207. Second by Paul. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll work on that calendar.
It's perfect. There's a cow. Thanks, hard.
And Jody's on Zoom.
What, Jim?
Jody's on Zoom.
Oh. Afternoon, Jody. I think we're ready for you.
Hi. I can't quite see you, but I'm here. So the whole point of my request is to request a waiver for the Indian preference fee for our transitional supportive housing program. I explained in the request that we didn't get our full grant amount that we had requested. So we are trying to conserve every penny in order to put it towards the project. And it's out to bid right now. We'll have a pre-bid meeting next week. And then we expect bids in the middle of May. So we need to know what our total available funds are in order to know what the contract amount can be. So I'm requesting that.
What do you lost your audio? Hold on just a minute. That might be on our end.
Sorry, no, it was me. But 3% over a 4 or 5 million contract is very significant.
Request is for a waiver on the current project that they're in. What's the name of the project again, Jody?
It's for transitional supportive housing. And we're building an apartment complex in Ronan next to the new tribal health clinic. And we have designed a building with 10 units and an alternate of 2 more units. So we're hoping to get 10 to 12, but it's dependent on what the bid results are. And this unit or these units will hold families for family reunification purposes. And it's going to be operated by the Child Protective Services program. And I will provide rental assistance for the occupants there.
Motion by Carol. Question, go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jody. Will this be able to cover the lack of funding, or are you have to be more creative for other avenues?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. It's muffled.
The Indian preference fee going to be enough to like offset these costs, or you have to pursue other cost-cutting measures?
Yep, we got a waiver last week from the Ronan City Council for their impact fees for water and sewer. And we are able to adjust. We aren't going to get extra insurance. There was, I think, $91,000 for us to get extra insurance. We're going to put it all on the contractor, and we won't have extra insurance on that. And I think there were trying to think. We started going through the budget to see what we could adjust and eliminate. And we ended up putting a lot of the, like even the landscaping and the fences are all alternates on the bids, so that if it comes down to it, we're getting the most building as possible. And then we could do sidewalks later, the fence later, storage units later. So we're trying to pinch the pennies as best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jody, what was the purpose of the meeting last night?
The public meeting that we did for Ronan, that was because when we had initially done our public meeting for the permanent supportive housing, there was a lot of pushback from the community. They didn't want to have supportive housing in their backyard. And so we paused that permanent supportive housing project, and the zoning still went through. But we had told them if we do another housing project in the future for supportive housing, we will have another meeting. And I talked to Dan Miller about it today because I was at a funeral service yesterday, so I wasn't able to be at the public meeting. And he said that there was still community pushback, but that Patty Hibbler was there and she presented the program side well, and the architect was there to present the building. And so he said it didn't matter what we would have said, that the community didn't really want that in their backyard. So it was for informational purposes, and we had told them it wasn't required, but we did it as a courtesy because we had said we would if we picked up the project again.
Got a motion from Carol, second from Martin, to waive the Indian preference fee on the project. All in favor? Okay. Got 8-4, and I'm against. So motion carries.
All right.
There you go.
I have a question, Jody. I probably should have asked off of the record, but a couple of weeks back, I seen something that was put up for public comment, and it seemed like, according to my calculations, it was only a public comment for like 5 days, and I seen that Pam Wilson, that put it out. And it appeared 5 days of public comment, and that's really not much time. Am I mistaken with that? It's been probably 3 to 4 weeks ago. I think I brought it up in council and asked the question. And it seems like public comment, according to the Tribal Administrative Procedures Ordinance, should probably be longer than that. And so I was just wondering if you recall that or not.
I did not know there was a set minimum standard for public comment. When we do our environmental assessments, we have to advertise it usually for 2 weeks. And then we have proof of advertisement. And that's when the public comment period is for our projects for environmental assessment. But this is just an annual report, a public comment. I'm assuming that you were looking at for one of our Indian housing block grants, and there is no set minimum requirement for that. But if you would like us to standardize our process, I would be willing to put it however much you need. We usually have shorter turnarounds on our annual reports because they are due to HUD on March 30th of every year. And by the time we close our quarter and do all of any kind of review, then we do our final report after that. And so we usually don't have enough time to do longer periods of public comment, but we can definitely strive to have more time. And if there is a standard somewhere that I should be following, I would love a copy of it, and we'll do the best we can.
I don't know if that really applies. I'm just not sure, but I'm just thinking, if you truly want public comment, and I know you do, that I was telling people, they were kind of upset about the rent stuff. I said, well, you need to make a public comment. Well, the time frame was so short there wasn't enough time, and I don't even know if that was the appropriate place to even put public comment on rent. But anyway, I was just thinking, there's no sense in asking for public comment if you really don't want it, or you don't need it, or let's see, it's not really required to get public comment.
Right, so the public comments were for our last activities.
Yeah, okay.
Raised rents for a year and 5 months.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you, guys.
You have a question? Hold on.
Hey, Jody, I have a question. Since we have you on Zoom, do you have any updates on the price program? Have you heard anything about that? Whether or not CSKT got accepted?
We did not receive that, and I forwarded an email that said we didn't. But I do have a grant to put in infrastructure, and Mark was supposed to bring it to you guys last week, requesting to put in infrastructure at that same Finley Creek area in Arlee. And he told me that it was pushed back, I think, to this week, but I still want to do the development, but we only have 2 million, so we're not going to be able to do all the infrastructure, but we could do phase 1.
Thank you, Jody.
Yeah, and next week we're having our orientation, and we can definitely hash out anything that you guys want to talk about, and we have presentations prepared so that you guys could understand where we're at better on all of our projects.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I just wanted to make note that once again, because my wife attended that public meeting last night. Once again, the city managers have stepped up in support of the tribes and defend the tribes, both in Polson and in Rowan. So Dan really did an exceptional job advocating for the project and debating the adversaries. So just wanted to make council know that. Thank you.
That brings us to Mr. Mayor, Baylor University. Come on up. Welcome. Tony.
Good afternoon, everyone. See you again. I'm here to introduce Andrew. He's with Baylor University. He's been partnered with the St. Anne's School District to do a community outreach program to study basketball and kind of community involvement around basketball down there. And has a few findings. He's held quite a few kind of community listening centers and kind of put some information together and hopefully continues the grant moving forward after hopefully we get some good news with it. So Andrew. Yep.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for spending some time and allowing me a little bit of time to report back to this committee, this council, what I did in the second half of last year. And as Tony said, some of my findings. Are you all able to see as I scroll, do you see what I see? Okay, thank you. So here, as you can see, I believe this is the agenda. And I wanted to also send to you the Salish Kootenai College IRB approval from last year. Some of you might have been on the committee last year or the council last year when I first presented this at the very end of February. And I had plane tickets booked to come up and conduct my first focus group on March 2nd. And it was suggested we do the IRB. And I fully believe in doing things properly in the right way. And so we paused that part of the project and I worked with IRB I worked with Tony, I worked with Sadie Peony Stops at the Salish Kalispell Culture Committee. And we worked on this IRB, which came through on April 30th and is actually ending in 14 days, which is great that we were able to do this all within the given time. I also want to submit the informed consent so that those of you who might not be up on what this project was were able to read through it and kind of get an idea of what I was aiming for with this project. Again, I'll refer to this project, which is the focus group project, but these focus groups were an effort to gather a better understanding of the role and meaning of basketball in the St. Ignatius community. To understand and, as Tony alluded to, submit a larger grant to work with the high school boys and girls on the basketball team using GoPro cameras to get their story, their side of what basketball means in their lives as members, young members of their community. So that project has not occurred yet. That is, I have submitted a grant to the National Endowment for the Humanities. I did that back in January. And hopefully in the next 3 or 4 months, we will hear if that project has been funded. That would be a 2-year project, about $150,000 to provide the young athletes with GoPro cameras and let them share their story of what basketball means in their lives today as young people. I'm slowly scrolling. I'm sorry. I hope it's not annoying on your end, but I'm trying to get to the PowerPoints here. So today, what I'd like to do is spend just about 10, maybe 12 minutes giving you a good idea and overview of the 3 focus group sessions that I conducted in St. Ignatius in August, October, and in December. And kind of give you just a broad overview of the themes that started to emerge. And then at the end, I will kind of come down on 3 major themes, and then also wish to highlight the role and importance of the coaches and the mentors in this community in the lives of these young athletes. Now, I have not interviewed the young athletes. All of this information comes from the adults who were 18 years or older at the time and showed up to these focus groups. I first should have started here. I'd like to thank you all, the CSKT and Tribal Council for your willingness to even just hear what I have to say, listen to my ideas, and speak into this project already, which has made it even better. I'd like to thank Sadie Peony Stops, the director of the Salish Kalispell Culture Committee. Stacy Sherwin was the SKC IRB coordinator, and she helped me walk through that IRB approval process. I met with Sean Hendrickson and oh man, I'm blanking on his name, the superintendent of St. Ignatius School District. Thank you, Jason Sargent. They have met with me, and we've talked about this project and have graciously opened up the school so that I could conduct the focus groups in the cafeteria. The St. Ignatius community was very welcoming, the participants, the parents. I've been here 6 times now and really feel welcomed, and I feel like it's been a good relationship. Adam Hockeluck is the district clerk, and he's been part of this project from the very beginning. And I've worked with him to help organize the sessions, and he's actually gone through the IRB approval process and is now a full-fledged IRB approved member of my little team that I've put together. Mr. Tony Incasciola here, who has again also been part of this project since its very beginnings and has really poured ideas and given great suggestions as we move forward through this process. Stuart Grant, who at the time that I first started this project was the athletic director and the boys head coach, and he has been instrumental. He's kind of my community contact person, the main person that I've worked with on this and has been really excellent in kind of, again, guiding me through the ins and outs of this process in this community. And then finally, individually, Vernon Grant, who is Stuart Grant's cousin, who was the initial person that came down to Baylor University over 2 years ago now. And I had lunch with him, and that kind of kicked open the door for me to come towards this community because of his cousin relationship with Stuart as AD and as basketball coach. I'd also like to thank Baylor, my home university, and the College of Health and Human Sciences. I've been awarded a research award, which was the way that I was able to fund this focus group project. And then my two daughters, who are pictured here, Aubrey on the left and Cora on the right, who are now diehard Mission basketball fans from afar, that we get to watch virtually through that NHS and NFHS broadcast, which is just fantastic. And then my wife, Renee, who's also an academic at Baylor, but understands the importance of doing community research and qualitative work, and has allowed me to come up and spend some time every couple of months. I wanted to, I didn't do this last night. I met with the participants for a member checking event last night, but I wanted to present to the board kind of a background theory of what I'm basing this research project on. About 6 years ago, I started a research collaboration with a member of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee. Her name is Natalie Welch, and she's a professor at Seattle University. And she and I, through some conversations, really value the benefit of sport. In my area of work, there's plenty of people that boohoo NIL, they boohoo high-paid athletes, they boohoo, all of the bad things that are about sport. And Natalie and I both share a passion for finding the good in sport. And Natalie brought this kind of theoretical idea to me, which was, what if we studied sport using it from a strengths perspective and working with communities from an abundance perspective or abundance approach, which basically means that you use the community not to, or you use sport in a community not to address the ills or the bad things that are happening, but to build on the positives. What are the good things? What are the strengths that each community has? And how can you use sport in a positive way to build on those positive things? So if you looked at my questions, most of them were not, what's the worst thing about sports today with the kids? How is social media damaging these kids? It wasn't a negative tone. It was very much, how does sport bring people together? How does sport build what this community already has going for it? And so things like that, gratitude is enough, and cultivating a faith in your neighbor, faith in those around you, a faith in your community, has nothing to do with a religious affiliation. And then celebrating successes. These are elements of this abundance-based approach. And I just wanted the council to be aware of kind of the theoretical background of this project. And when I asked the questions to the community members in August, October, and December, I based it off of a paper that Natalie had been involved in. If you look down at the bottom here, this is Natalie's citation here from a 2003 paper that she wrote about how sport could be used to build on strengthening communities coming out of COVID-19. Indigenous communities, more specifically. And they called this the 5 protective factors of exercising sovereignty. How could sport be a cultural activity that helps communities come back from the ills or the things that we all had to deal with during COVID, and Indigenous communities especially? And so what I did is I looked at these 5 areas, and then Natalie is not part of this current project. She is part of the GoPro camera project. If that gets funded, she will be a co-investigator. And in collaboration with her, I said, I'm going to ask the community in Montana questions about how basketball, not just sport, but how basketball specifically represents a way of life up here with community, right? How it teaches adaptation skills, or how knowledge is transferred through generations. How do family and kinship connections, how are those portrayed and strengthened through sport? And so I just wanted to give the council again an idea of where I got these questions from. I did not come up with them on my own. These were founded in an Indigenous research and have really actually done some really amazing, she's done some other amazing things using this sort of 5 protective factors. And so I conducted those 3 focus group sessions in August, October, and December. I had 2 nights, so if people could not come to one of the nights, hopefully they could come to the other. And in total, I didn't put this in here, I had 28 individuals across the 3 months that I came up. Not all the time, right? But between the 2 nights that I offered the sessions. We had good repeat, so we had people come to all 3. We had a few that just came once, and then some that came twice. I took all those recordings and I uploaded them to a program called rev.com, which is a transcription service that is, you might know all about this. You put in your recording, and within 24 hours, you get the transcript back. And then I looked at the recordings. I had 2 microphones, so I had to make sure that the recordings matched. I had to make sure that if one missed something, the other one got it. And so I had a recording and a transcript for each night. And then at the end of December, or after the December one, I started to go through the transcripts and make sure that they were accurate, and I started to assess them for themes. And so those themes, you'll see here in a second later in this presentation, I put themes and then organize them into larger themes. So you have smaller sub-themes that are now under a heading of a larger theme for each question. And then what I did about 2 weeks ago, or maybe even just a week ago now, is I started to look at those bigger themes and see if there were even common themes across all of the interviews, all of the focus group sessions. Last night, this is part of qualitative research. Last night, the themes were presented back to the community. We had an event down at 9 Pipes, and I went through the themes. I talked to them about the sub-themes and allowed time for them to speak back into it and to offer any suggestions. Did I get something wrong? Was I missing something? And generally, the feedback was that they were pretty pleased with what they were able to see, and that what I found and derived from that was well reflected of what they had said. Okay, so that was last night. Now, I'm not going to go through all the themes with you. I think that would probably bore you, or you might find it interesting. I mean, we can talk about it. But I wanted to just highlight maybe just the themes that emerged from each question. And those would be these bigger themes here. And so for the question, what does basketball mean to this community? I found the themes of connection, motivation, tradition, and identity to emerge from the talk, the feedback. All of this is the voice of the community, by the way. I maybe want to highlight that. I have not really put anything into this other than to try and organize what I think they said under thematic strands. So all of this is the voice of the community, which is important for me as a researcher. And I'll explain a little bit more. If you also look here, you'll see that every time there's a highlighted item under these, it tends to be coaches or mentors. And I wanted to do that to highlight how important those individuals are in this process, or in the whole study. That the people who are doing the things that are leading to these themes that are coming out are really the coaches, mentors, parents, people in the community that are influencing these boys and girls. Under the question of what are the differences between boys and girls, other than their records, their seasonal records, which was a very fun topic to discuss, we heard about community support and the importance of that, the history of the performances between boys and girls, and the gender dynamics of what's going on between a boys' team and a girls' team. The history of the performance was interesting because we talked about how boys basketball was the winter and girls used to be in the fall, I believe. Is that correct? And once they've now come under the same season, there's almost a strengthening of the community to come and watch both the boys and the girls, and not kind of splitting them up. So they're almost playing the game at the same time and being observed by the community and supported by the community at the same time. I asked what they wanted young people to get out of playing basketball, a sense of belongingness and interpersonal relationships, this building of life skills, right? Learning values. All of these things sort of emerged from the recordings and from the transcripts. And this fourth question here was, what are the benefits to this community through basketball? And interestingly enough, this question and the first question, because they both dealt with this idea of what does basketball give to this community, or what does basketball, what are the benefits, they have the same themes here. So there's connection, a sense of belongingness and togetherness, motivation, which is this idea of teaching values and kids learning, a passing along of tradition and generational knowledge, and then identity. The kids were able to sort of form this identity as players, but the community was also able to generate a sense of pride in their teams, even if they weren't winning all the time. Each for October and December, there are 5 questions that I just want to highlight briefly again. I asked how basketball was a way of life. And the themes that emerged were that it creates community, that there can be intergenerational influence. And this is interesting because in basketball or in sport, that is a way that generations can speak to each other in a way that other activities really don't allow for. One of my general observations was I've never seen so many people at different points in generationally from all over a community come into a building to support young people playing a sport. It was pretty profound. You don't always see that. And so that intergenerational influence was really pronounced. It teaches life lessons, and that the kids are exposed. And last night we talked about how some kids use basketball maybe as an escape. And then some also might use basketball as to further opportunities that they might wish to seek, right? To go play in other states or even other countries. But some kids are just looking for basketball for a routine or consistency because other things in their life are not so settled. I then asked what values are learned or taught through basketball. And this was a question that I did ask in a particular way. And this is where we get to see a lot of the values, like look at all these values. And if you know anything about sport, we always say sport teaches certain things. Well, here they all are. They all came out in our conversation. So basketball in St. Ignatius is no different than basketball in Lorena, Texas, which is where I live. Those values are the things that are associated with sport and with playing. But again, look over here to the right, who influences these values? It's the coaches. It's the mentors. It's the people who are associated with teaching these values, pouring into these kids. And so I just wish to highlight that one more time. How does basketball pass on intergenerational knowledge? The participants really loved talking about this. They highlighted the importance of storytelling. Not just like when I played back in the 80s or 90s or whatever. But also, I even heard a story last night that traditional stories can be shared with the kids on bus rides, or things can be shared through stories when you're warming up or at different times. So storytelling really became this pronounced theme that I find very fascinating as a researcher. I have this new idea about storytelling, but that's not for here. We have continuity of legacy and cultural values being shared. And again, role models, and the basketball players even identifying, people that they looked up to, their heroes from a very young age, that they were inspired, or these other players were inspirational and made them want to play. How does basketball teach adaptation skills? Young Tony Incasciola, I've quoted once in here, at the bottom says, adaptation is the game of basketball. He said it 3 times, which, you say something 3 times, you really mean it, right? That basketball is adaptation. That is the essence of that game, right? As soon as that ball goes up in the air, the game plan could be totally thrown off, right? So you have to learn how to adapt. And so the young people, the boys and girls, are learning how to adapt. They did identify that young people are under pressure all the time, not just, school, but there seems to be a sense from the adults that young people are under pressure. And so the game teaches those adaptation skills and it allows them to adapt emotionally as well. Again, highlighting the coach's role. And then the last question for October was, how does basketball teach unconditional acceptance? And the themes of reliance. So then the athletes needing each other, the team dependency, but also knowing what their role is, knowing what I'm good at and what my teammate is good at, and how then can we bring those strengths together to highlight, to do well as a team, not to kind of fight for the ball or fight for the spotlight. This idea of inclusivity and bringing everybody who wants to participate in. The development of friendship and life lessons, again, are being promoted through basketball as it teaches this idea of unconditional acceptance. And then lastly, the questions from December. And by the way, these pictures are all pictures that I took. And if you notice, the first picture, August, was facing south along the mountain range, and I did not do this on purpose. It's facing east in October, and this last shot is facing north, going up north on the Mission Mountains. I just thought that was I didn't mean to do it, but it happened. I then asked how basketball players were agents of change. Not just the players being agents of change, but how are players also caught up in the change, right? That these athletes don't just exist and have everything put towards them, they're also part of making changes. And we talked in here about how the young athletes today can use social media to influence we talked about it last night, wear traditional skirts, right? The women can wear, or the girls can wear traditional skirts, the boys can braid their hair. And that is a different environment that these kids are in today than even 20 years ago or 30 years ago. That indigenous heritage and culture can be shared and they can speak on things in a way that maybe young athletes had not been able to in the past. And so that came up, advocacy. Knowing who they are, having pride in their culture and representing their culture. That was part of this theme that emerged in this question. And then again, this idea of generational continuity, right? Carrying on the traditions and culture through advocacy if they wish to. How does basketball develop kinship and empower athletes? Here we saw this theme of collective, that there's a collective mentality and interdependence, which I'll highlight later on down in this show. Again, life lessons are being taught and learned through basketball, right? Maybe not even overtly, but just maybe even in the background, just in how an older person treats a young person. Because again, here we see this theme of mentoring, the influence of the coach. Last three, I'm sorry, I've taken a while. I then asked, how does basketball give back? And what was really interesting here was that when I asked, how does basketball give back? A lot of what people talked about was the community pouring into basketball. So it's almost like I asked, how does basketball give back? But they wanted to talk about how, and it makes sense, they're the adults, right? That we support them, that we engage with them, that we travel around. And so this reciprocal relationship, I think, has really emerged in how the adults think about basketball at the high school level, even though I think they do get a lot from basketball as well. Right? That the sense of belonging. Maybe you move to St. Ignatius and you find yourself cheering for the Bulldogs when they go and play Plains or something like that. Okay, so community, life lessons, generational traditions again, and a sense of belongingness. This question about developing or hindering or helping family connections. I wanted to kind of understand, what's going on. I'm a father of some young girls and they're involved in sport. And so wanting to know, what happens in basketball that might help or hinder family connections. And I think it's nice that we have more themes come out about how basketball helps foster family connections versus hinders. But some things that really stood out was that it can help understanding, it can provide a sense of empathy or a form of communication between parents and kids. We talked about this a lot last night, this idea of communication, but it could also just be a sense of my dad played, and so he knows what I'm going through, right? It might not have to be talking at the dinner table. We also see that sometimes basketball might hinder, where there might be pressure or expectations beyond what might be normally felt if the young person was not an athlete. So there might be some emotional strains. But again, we heard a lot about how the team operates almost as a family. And Stuart, as the boys' coach, he would speak in on that. And he didn't realize that as a young coach, but really now understands himself in his role as a coach to those young boys. And then my last question was, how does basketball provide a sense of belongingness? And again, you can really see some of the bolded text here, but this idea of a history and of traditions, that again, there's this sort of collective mentality, right? A collective mentality that even extends to Waco, Texas, where I'm watching on a Tuesday night, pulling for the Bulldogs and not wanting to text if they didn't do so well, right? Or text Tony when his daughter hits 9 3-pointers. It's just it's a way of feeling part of something through this sense of belongingness because of basketball. And then a way for emotions to be handled, real life connections, not virtual connections. But through basketball, there could be a sense of actual feelings of belongingness, feeling connected and existing in some sort of a safe space or safe environment. And so as of about a week ago, I kind of came up with 4 major themes that I presented back to the community last night. And this first one is the theme of interdependence. And one of the members, or one of the participants in this focus group, she brought this term interdependence into the conversation in October. And I felt like it really encapsulated a bunch of the themes for each question. So things like connection and community, inclusivity, friendship and collective belongingness, support, and this idea of interpersonal relationships. That through basketball, the young people are learning that I do this, you do this, and without each other, we don't do anything, right? This interdependence. I kind of think of it as a spider web. This idea of tradition, a major theme of tradition was certainly apparent in these transcripts. The history of performance and performers, the generational ties of traditions and influence and continuity, this notion of storytelling and sharing legacy, sharing culture, and almost this idea of collective memory. I'll stay on track. And then a tradition of identity, right? That mission basketball means something because it's been there for generations. This idea of tradition is a major theme. And then I don't like this word, but I haven't thought of a better one yet, but this idea of the motivations, right? That basketball teaches these life skills that will go beyond just playing those 4 or 5 or 6 years. They will lead these young people to have lessons and skills that help them after they graduate. The values are passed down, that they can deal with pressures and adapt to not just things on the basketball court, but things off the basketball court. And that these athletes can be seen as advocates for their community and for the things that are important to them. And then motivation also kind of builds in, I don't think I have it here, that a lot of people talked about how if they were not playing basketball, they might not go to school. At that time, right? So basketball prompts them to go. But then the thing that I think I highlighted throughout all of the findings was that there was this idea of who are the influencers. And these are the coaches and the community members, the mentors and the role models, who are often seen as heroes, people that older people that young people look up to. And multiple times throughout all the transcripts, we heard about how everybody is actually valued around this sport of basketball. Even the managers, even those that don't play that much or aren't as skilled as other players, that there should be a sense of the importance and influence of all. So I end there. I'm sorry I spoke a little longer than I had anticipated. But I did want to thank the tribal council and again for hearing me and please ask any questions or maybe something that I wasn't clear on. I can go back to any of the slides. Ramesh.
Thank you. Any questions for Andrew? Talked about any of his topics. How many of us have played basketball? Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Great project, it's a great topic. And, I come from a basketball family, but the one thing that I always noticed in Montana, especially, is that the smaller the school, the more all these things are true. The bigger the school, the less they are. And actually can be getting more to the negative than the positive. Because it's all centered upon trying to allow every child to participate. And when they can't participate as they grow and get older, then there becomes problems with that. So the small classy schools, you just gotta get a team, everybody has to play, right? But you go to a AA school or a Class A school, it's a different parameter. And like Ronan, you could have 65 boys trapped for the team and only 10 can make it. So what do the other 45 kids do? You know, that's the learning and life's a problem. So it's the smaller the school, the more this is all true. The bigger the school, the less it is. Doesn't matter.
Can I reply to that real quick? Last night, a young female basketball player was in attendance and she asked, could we do this in other places? And so I think it would be really interesting to take this to a Ronan or to a Missoula and conduct this same set of questions that I think you're even speaking to. They might not even understand the question. What do you mean? How does it create belongingness, right? So I want to highlight that I do understand the uniqueness of this, and thanks for saying that.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was kind of asking that same question to Martin here a little bit before you started this. Well, I come from Oaks Road from Michigan, I was there. We had 2 state champions, 1 runner. And then the following year we had another one with state, and then last year one, so this thing again. But the community up there was really kids, 100%, you know, and wherever they went, they had a crowd. We had a program. We went to state, there was more people from Army than anybody in that facility. But Tony sitting there beside you, he's got somebody coming up there too, and there he's got, they got to the state last year. And they did, you know, it's just the idea to get these kids go like this and follow them and stuff, you know, with all the people that is involved in basketball, like Tom said, you know, it's just the idea. Whoever goes, you know, and like the man was, they went to state, he got third in state, you know, and did real well. So, you know, it's just the idea of just, you can't believe the talent that is around there. These kids, you know, and it's good to see that all of them have this talent. And there's some, I mean, like our girls, I mean, the last few years hasn't been very great. I mean, I think 1 year they didn't even win. A couple of years, they didn't win a game at all. Yeah, and then it was long. It's been a long season for them. You know, you said you're going to maybe separate these seasons. I think that's a good idea with that team that you know kind of play ball, and nobody there to support it. You know, nobody there to community support it because of the type of team they have, and it shows. As soon as you have a good boys team does real well, they're all right there to support them. Next thing you know, girls coming on the floor, he's there, just except for the parents. And you see this all the time, you know, and it's sad to see that, you know, and it's I've been following basketball all my life. I coached paintball, and I've seen a lot of basketball. Late 3 years I've been around. Two state championships in a row, unbelievable. You got two of them, you know, that's coach, helping coach in our league. And then hopefully that they get to be the coaches. Because they went to school and everything else, you know, and I think that they could do a very good job with those kids, and they all look up to their kids, you know. So I hope that they and just go keep at this. You know. And to see that happen. But I just wanted to commend you what you do with these kids, you know, it's good that you're doing this. And appreciate it, especially coming to be a missionary. My granddaughter, missionary for 3 years, you know, it's great balls. And it was good. It was just to be good to be part of that community too. Yeah, good ball team, you know, girls and boys. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, kind of the basketball on the reservations beyond the towns, like Norley was making their runs a few years ago. I mean, it was amazing to see all the people from, you know, our rival Mission going and supporting and being Warrior fans and, you know, wearing a little red here and there. And so it really kind of lifted up the reservation, because we're going through a really tough time with a lot of suicides, especially in our league and just kind of throughout the reservation. And so it was one of those positive things that we could watch the kids that we've seen growing up their whole lives go out and just perform really well and just kind of know where they came from. Obviously, my coach's kids, and so yeah, it's good to have a sport bringing the community together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your work. One of the things I've been working on is trying to rehabilitate some of these outdoor basketball courts that have been kind of orphaned. And so I've worked with Tony, who's been helping me with this as well, is trying to rehabilitate some of the athletic areas in San Ignacio primarily. We're working with the city to upgrade the ballpark or the basketball courts that they have in their park. And then some of the ones, then we have one by the Longhouse that's been kind of working for a while. Then I noticed there's one up in Elmo that I forgot about. So when you're trying to focus on some of those things, you know, when the school's closed or whatever building's closed, gym, there's that outdoor opportunity for those folks to play basketball. I'm not a basketball player, I never was, but I admire those that are. But I just think it was important to try to, you know, when you see kids out there trying to play basketball, there's no backboard, no nothing. So I think it's a small investment to young people or adults that are out there to enjoy some of that. So I think St. Ignatius, the town's got those ones replaced in their at their courts. But it'll take a little work on the next to the Longhouse. So, but I think that's another facet that in this that you know quite how do you register the those kind of things, but if they're fixed, somebody's going to use them. And so I just think that's been kind of my little focus in the basketball. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you. James reminded me of one thing. Again, I grew up all over Montana. My dad was a coach, basketball coach. Was how much that facility means to the small community, that gym. It represents everything to that community. And when I lived in Eastern Montana, those gyms in those small towns, whether it was on a res or other places,